Welcome to the Young List. Let's talk about the manliest thing that one could ever talk about, right? That's why my hat's backwards, because I'm in uber macho alpha male mode, so gotta have my hat backwards for that, right? Gotta represent the manliness, the masculine jaw, my Giga Chad jaw, because we're talking about florals, guys. Masculine florals. So get your pecs out, right? Get your guns. We're talking about masculine florals, the manliest fragrance category in the world. There's nothing more manly than a floral fragrance pitched at men. And why is that? Why is that? Well, let me tell you why. Because only a real man isn't afraid of wearing a floral fragrance. And when a perfume house, whether it be a designer, celebrity scent, Avon, it could be anybody, all right, niche, whatever, they are willing to build a floral-centric perfume and then pitch it to a guy, knowing there's going to be some hang-ups and some insecurities, right? But they go ahead and they do it anyway. They launch the male market-focused floral fragrance, knowing the stigma going back over a century now, right? Especially in the West. Not so much in the Middle East, not so much in Asia, not so much in parts of the world that don't have this stupid dichotomy that we have over here with our fragrances, the his and her stuff, all right? Knowing that, they go ahead and they release the fragrance anyway. That takes some serious, takes some huevos, guys. Takes some serious cojones to do that. Got to have some marbles. Got to have some yarbles if you're going to use the Clockwork Orange term, right? Like Alex from Clockwork Orange. Got the yarbles, right? Take some big fat ones to go ahead and release that fragrance on the market, knowing that most guys are going to kick it back in their face because they're going to be afraid to wear it. Because florals are for girls. They're for women. They're for pretty pretties, right? They're not for the big macho men who can bench like 5,000 pounds, right? Can lift the sun over their head, right? Like Terry Crews in the Old Spice commercials. Guys like that can't go near flowers because their pee-pee shrinks. Pew! Instantly, it inverts. The moment they touch a flower, it's gone. Their voice goes up 3 octaves. Suddenly, they like caviar, right? And they drink mimosas because they touched a flower. Oh no, it's the end of the world. Testosterone counts in the negative, guys. Should have stayed away from the florals. No! Yeah, man. Like I said, it takes big ones to not only launch a floral fragrance in this really separated market we have, right? But then it takes even bigger marbles to actually buy that fragrance and to wear it, to actually wear the damn thing and be confident with it and rock it, make it your own. So yes, the most manly fragrance genre in the world is the floral fragrance, and even more so when it's one pitched to guys, right? Of course, I'm just blowing smoke up your ass. I don't really care. You wear what you want to wear. I wear what I want to wear. But I just got to make fun of the whole situation since this video is about masculine florals. It is. And it almost seems like an unnecessary thing. Like there shouldn't need to be a masculine floral versus a feminine floral, because the honest truth here is, guys, and this is where I get serious, all right? So let's turn the hat around and get serious here. The truth is that florals should be considered the same way that aromatics are, that citruses are, that ambers and resins are, that mosses and woods are. The material itself shouldn't have a gender. It's just an aesthetic, right? Because women have mossy, leathery perfumes, and women have citrus aromatic perfumes, and women have spicy, ambery perfumes, right? Guys have all those things too. And then there are plenty of things that are unisex that cross the invisible fence, the electric fence to put the shock collar on, the invisible fence, you go over it, bzz, get zapped. So you have the unisex things and the ungendered things that cross both sides. But florals are like the deal breaker. You can't have heavy florals. You can't have a bunch of flowers in a fragrance. Once it tiptoes over the imaginary line, now it's over here in man's land. Oh no, that's a big deal. Suddenly you get all kinds of peacocking and grandstanding going on. You get all kinds of really weird chauvinist remarks, or you get homophobic expletives thrown at the fragrances and all this other weirdness, right? Because people's pee-pee shrink, like I said. They touch the rose. Woo! So, and you can really research it. You can double down and you can dig into the last 150 or so odd years of culture in the West. More specifically, again, we're going to pick on the English speakers. It's not so much a big deal in France. They don't really care in Germany. They don't really care in Scandinavia. It's really a problem that's more or less English speakers are the ones that have the problem with the floral. So it's America, it's the UK, it's Australia, it's New Zealand, it's the Anglophone world. Right? The sun never sets on the British Empire, but apparently a guy can't smell like a rose. And American dudes are in the same boat. And Canadian dudes, yep, we're throwing you in there too. You guys are the ones that have the big problems with the flowery flower stuff being in the perfumes. You can't have it. But there is a small clutch of fragrances, like I said, that have popped up over the years that seem to really go for the floral aesthetic. And some of them have been met with success, and we'll discuss the ones that are successful. But a lot of them have been met with failure because, again, the stigma is there. The stigma is there. Guys are afraid of them, and they won't touch them. And, it's just kind of weird. But enough with the phenomenon. Let's talk with the actual fragrances themselves, all right? And I'll let you guys decide how you feel about it, right? I'm sure a lot of you are going to put me on blast saying, oh, don't make fun of me because I don't like florals because I want to smell like a real man, which is a combination of sawdust and motor oil and child support payments, right? That's your idea of the ideal macho smell or whatever. Have fun with that. Anyway, your ankle monitor is still on. Don't leave the house. Cops will get you. So, really, floral fragrances were honestly more accepted by guys in antiquity than now. You'll find if you look through history, 1800s, 1700s, up through to the early 1900s, guys were much more comfortable wearing things like rose and heliotrope, lilac fragrances. Much more comfortable with that. Violets. Guys didn't seem to have a problem with that. But then again, it might also just be because they didn't have all the chemistry we have now. So they couldn't create these wonderful pine forest perfumes and these wonderful ocean sand perfumes and these petrol leather fragrances. The possibility did not exist for those fragrances to be made. You couldn't wear Fahrenheit in 1750. It just, you couldn't wear Green Irish Tweed in 1875, all right? You couldn't wear Aqua de Jo Pour Homme, all right, at the Battle of Waterloo. It just wasn't happening. Those things didn't exist back then. So maybe that's why. Maybe that's why guys were a little more comfortable with the Parma violets and the carnations and the roses and all that stuff. Now, lavender is a flower, and a lot of guys love lavender, but most would consider it more of an aromatic smell, even though it's derived from literally a flower. It's a more of an aromatic smell, and it's become associated with toiletries, shaving cream, talc, all right, early colognes. So that lavender is kind of like the one flower that gets the He-Man Woman Haters Club, the Yo Bro Fist Pound Pass. Lavender, man. Lavender gets in the club. Lavender gets to pop the collars, pull out the medallions and the chest hair. Lavender gets to grow the big handlebar mustaches and smoke the big fat Zeno cigars, right? It gets past all that stuff. It passes the gender vibe check because of its history with male-marketed toiletries and the fact that it's kind of the least floral-smelling flower. But the other flowers were still quite popular. There were plenty of rose waters. I mean, goodness. Hammam Bouquet by Penhaligon's. That's literally like rose and civet and sandalwood, guys. Literally, rose and civet and sandalwood. And guys loved it. Jockey Club. Jockey Club by Caswell Massey. If you believe their debut year of 1840 on that fragrance, I don't know, it's debatable. If you believe that launch year of 1840, that was like 20 years before the Civil War, guys. 20 years before the Civil War in the United States. Guys were wearing that. And if you smell that, it's nothing but flowers. it's like, it's freaking all the flowers, you know, and it's got a civet, again, a civet base note, a little bit of sandalwood in there. And it's very bracing. Yes, the lime top note makes it bracing, but it's very floral. And both of those fragrances are still worn and sold. Hammam Bouquet is a little harder to get, okay, because Penhaligon's went up market. But you can still grab the Jockey Club all day for like $50, $60. Now there's also the Heritage formula, which is different. I haven't smelled that one, mind you, but the original one's still out there, and I recommend it, right? It's a masculine floral, the point of this video. Once we get into the 20th century, right, we start seeing the his and her stuff, right? We start seeing Mouchoir de Monsieur by Guerlain. We start seeing Port un Homme by Caron, 1934 for that one. That's when the whole thing went. Moses came out and parted the Red Sea, and all the guys were over here wearing skin bracer, and all the girls were over here wearing L'air de Temps and number 5, okay? That's where that fell. Been that way ever since. So, however, despite that, be that as it may, right, the masculine floral has reemerged. It's come up for air periodically, like this. Boop, back down, boop, back down. And we've seen a couple of them. One of the big ones was carnation. Throughout the mid-20th century, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, carnation still very popular with guys. Now, bear in mind, masculinity in the 50s and 60s was a little more dapper and a little more buttoned down and structured. We weren't in the big, muscle-bound, hairy chest beating. We weren't doing this whole thing in the 50s, all right? That didn't exist. I mean, you had some bodybuilders, yes, and you had people who were into sports and stuff, yes, but like this over-exaggerated caricature of like alpha male masculinity, that was not a thing in the 50s. I mean, clean-shaven, combed-over hair, Vitalis in your hair or Brill cream, okay? You use your skin bracer or your aqua velva. You wear your pastel-colored Henley shirts with the 3 buttons, or maybe if you were into the Hawaiian prints or the bowling shirts or whatever, and then your business suit Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. That was it. Very buttoned down, very structured. So there was a little more space to breathe, a little more breathing room for flowers to have some say in the conversation. Not a lot of say, not much. Guys weren't wearing tuberose in the 50s, okay? They weren't doing that. But carnation seemed to be okay. A little bit of carnation, a little bit of geranium. Geranium is the more metallic aspect of rose. It's a separate flower, yes, but rose and geranium are kind of like two sides of the coin. Rose is the real floral green sort of thing, airy, sweet, rich. Geranium is the minty, the metallic, the sharp, the bracing. Both of them are like two sides of the same olfactive coin, in my opinion. Damascenone over here, geraniol over here. Geraniol is found in both, though. So it's like geranium was also given a fist pump bro pass. Welcome to the party. Lavender geranium together. Many fougères based on lavender geranium. But carnation was allowed to exist in that same time period. And we would see things that were very focused on carnation, okay? And one of my favorites was a fragrance by Evian, the original makers of White Shoulders, called The Baron. Talked about it before. I have mentioned how the original formula of The Baron was a sandalwood-based fragrance. But for whatever reason, when Galaxolide hit the market, and this was a few years, I think 67 maybe? A couple years, 65 or 67. Galaxolide hit the market, and Evian still was running the show. But they decided to go ahead and kind of retool the Baron fragrance, and they reduced the sandalwood down and stuck the Galaxolide in it. Because the Galaxolide, with a fruity floral nuance of its own, being a musk with this profile, really helped push the cleanliness of the carnation note. So the carnation note became more vivid, more sharp, more soapy, right? And that whole idea of soapy carnation that we now bank on, carnations are soapy. They're soapy. Well, it's the Baron that made them so. Because otherwise, if you know what eugenol does to a perfume, right? You know what eugenol is if you're a perfumer. It can make things spicy too. It's not really, eugenol by itself isn't really soapy. So you have to make the carnation note soapy by putting something else in it. And in this case, the very early bottles of the Baron were very sort of spicy, woody, the carnation, but then with the introduction of the galaxolide note, and that's how it would stay 60s, 70s, 80s, throughout the remainder of production up until LTL bought it out, and LTL began producing it in the 80s and 90s because Evian ceased to be a thing. White Shoulders went off to, I think it was Elizabeth Arden, took White Shoulders over, but LTL picked up the Baron and kept making it. But the soapy carnation of that fragrance, it's floral. It's as floral as floral can be. And there is some rose nuance in that, because remember, the Baron was based on White Shoulders, so the heliotrope, the carnation, the rose, they were all there in White Shoulders. They were also there in the Baron. And a lot of guys loved it. It was a very popular fragrance. On that same note, Monsieur Houbigant in 67. Monsieur Houbigant was also a carnation-based leather fragrance. Okay. It would get a musk version in 1972, Monsieur Musk would come out. Monsieur Musk Houbigant at first. Then the Houbigant would get dropped, and it would become a Parfums Parquet fragrance in the 80s. And it would just be called Monsieur Musk. Then Monsieur Musk would get picked up by Renaissance Cosmetics, who would buy some parts of Houbigant because they went kersplat. Houbigant went kersplat in the late 80s, early 90s. And Renaissance would pick up some of those pieces. So fragrances like Lutece and Monsieur Houbigant and Monsieur Houbigant Musk would come home to New Renaissance. And it would keep getting made. Then it would become a Dana fragrance, right? We all know the new ones are now Dana. But that perfume is also a floral fragrance. It's a floral musk, though. It has civet, okay, has white musks in it. Powdery, soapy, floral, clean. 70s, not a whole lot of floral action, I would admit. The 70s was kind of like the apex for the super macho man, you know, testosterone, my traps are up to my ears sort of thing. The Lou Ferrigno, the Incredible Hulk, busting through the wall, you know, that whole thing. Perfumes got really hairy, you know, giant wang, boom, hitting the table, just reeking of unwashed nastiness. We just went full caveman mode in the 70s, all right? Full caveman mode, right up into the early 80s. And a lot of these floral fragrances just kind of died. They went the Neanderthal route and just went extinct and winnowed out. But a couple of them hang on. The less popular of the Halston fragrances, right? Z14 is the one that y'all love with the cinnamon and the lemon verbena and the ambery woody profile, the oak moss. But 112 is the other fragrance. Y'all don't talk about that one. But 112 is another carnation, leather fragrance with galbanum in it, green notes. The carnation is that floral character it has, and the leather's underneath, okay? It's a good fragrance. I like it. One of the few truly floral fragrances for men made in the 70s, right? And then into the 80s, Kouros and then its ilk would give a bit of rebirth to some men's florals, okay? With a bit of a rebirth into the 80s and then into the 90s as well with the men's florals. We'd see a lot of white florals come back into the lexicon of men, really interesting enough, you know. The 80s was kind of like the resurgence of this whole dandy floral thing that had been gone for about 50, 60 years by that point, right? Since the end of World War II. Suddenly, the dandy florals from the turn of the 20th century were back, right? And we saw them creep into some fougères, like Zino Davidoff had some florals. We see some things like Furio. Furio is a real big floral fragrance. Oh my goodness, that thing is florals and Nag Champa and rose and civet. That thing is a hot mess. But some of y'all love it. You don't realize just how floral it truly is, but you know, you love it. And then stuff like, you know, Carlo Corinto from '86, Carlo Corinto is also very floral, very, very floral. And then some of the stuff from the 70s, the Aramis stuff, Aramis 900, basically a rose fragrance. That's basically a rose fragrance right there. Y'all don't want to admit it, but it is. But, again, the 80s, JHL, that's a very, very, very heavy rose, floral, amber fragrance, civet in that fragrance, very floral. Spicy, though, too, rounded, but still quite floral. Then we see some things like, Cerruti, 1881 and 1990. Anucci would have a floral fragrance, okay, guys? And then Rochas would hit you with the Globe in 1990, white floral, castoreum leather. And then Givenchy would jump on board with the incense fragrance that a lot of y'all collectors spend big money on, although I think Globe is better, honestly. Globe is better to me. But yeah, the men's florals would come and go. And CK1 is unisex, but a lot of guys wear that, and it's also a lot of florals in that, very jasmine-y. Just like Eau Sauvage in 65. There again, very heavy jasmine fragrance, Eau Sauvage, 1965. Big floral fragrance there. Y'all don't want to think of it as a floral fragrance, though. Again, because the herbs and the oak moss and the bergamot. But really, come on, guys. The jasmine is very obvious in Eau Sauvage. Don't kid yourselves, right? And then things will begin to die out. Like I said, the 2000s, 2010s, we're back in this jock, Gold's Gym. I drive a Subaru. I bump the Skrillex. We're back in this toxic thing again. I say toxic as a joke because I don't really care, right? If you want to live that lifestyle, if you want to have a tap-out bumper sticker or whatever, you listen to Nickelback and eat beefsteaks all the time and drink gin. If that's your thing, you do you. We can still be friends. It's not toxic to me. It may be toxic to your liver, okay, eating all that stuff, but it's not toxic to me. I don't care. So, but the point is, that would come back. That'd be the thing. All the Fred Durst guys with their big red hats like this, did it all for the nookie or whatever. So take that cookie, whatever that stuff was. I don't know. I was alive during that time. I was in my 20s. I was listening to Type O Negative, not Limp Bizkit. I don't really care. But the thing is, the florals would kind of be gone. There was one notable fragrance from 2003, actually, 2003. A man's tuberose fragrance, a English fragrance, okay? It came out, Richard James, Savile Row, 2003. I forget who the perfumer on that is, all right? It's not Jerome Epinette, someone else from that period. It's another perfumer who would become more popular later on, but you guys can look it up for me. The perfumer for Richard James, Savile Row. Men's tuberose fragrance. And the reason why they get away with that is they swaddle it in amber and musks and make it really heavy and make it a very, ambery kind of musky, almost obsession-ish kind of accord. But the tuberose rides on top of that. It's very strange. Most people who have been recommended to try this from me end up liking it, but just remember, guys, it's a tuberose fragrance, but it was marketed to guys. So there you go, masculine florals, right? What do you guys think of masculine florals? There's probably a whole bunch that I missed. I'm sure I missed a whole ton of them. You can name them in the comment section. You can name drop your favorites. You can browbeat me for making fun of you if you're having insecurities or whatever. I don't care. Just don't get too nasty or I'll block you. This has been the Unlist. Hopefully you enjoyed. Catch you next time.